Most people think paying off their mortgage is a financial event. It's not. It's a psychological one. And once you understand the difference, you'll see why two people can make the exact same financial move and come out with completely different investing lives on the other side. Here's the thing nobody tells you up front. When you pay off a house, you don't just lose a payment, you lose a threat. And the way your brain has been responding to that threat quietly and visibly every single month for decades shapes almost every financial decision you make. Think about what a mortgage actually is from your nervous system's perspective. It's not just a number. It's a countdown. A monthly proof of concept that you still have your income, your health, your job, your life together. Miss it, and the consequences are real. So your brain keeps that tab open every month for 30 years. That background hum, most people don't even notice it until it's gone. The first thing that changes when the mortgage disappears isn't your bank account. It's your floor. Your floor is the minimum amount your life costs to exist. And for most American households, the mortgage is the biggest weight on that floor. It's the number that everything else gets measured against. Can we take that trip? Can I quit? Can we handle a bad month? The mortgage is the silent veto on all of it. Once it's gone, the floor drops hard. Not to zero, you still have taxes, insurance, maintenance, life. But for a lot of households, that floor drops by $1.500 to $2.0000 a month in real breathing room. And breathing room doesn't sound that exciting until you've been without it for a decade. Here's where it gets interesting, because this is where the psychology kicks in. When your floor is high, your risk tolerance is low, whether you realize it or not. You might be putting money into the market every month, technically investing, technically doing the right thing. But in the back of your mind is a number, a mandatory number. And that number is quietly shrinking your tolerance for volatility. Because if the market drops 30% and you still have a mortgage, the math gets uncomfortable fast. You've got mandatory cash outflows. You've got a fixed baseline you have to hit no matter what. So what does the brain do? It gets conservative. It gets hesitant. It hesitates at drawdowns longer than it should. It pulls back. It hedges. It checks the portfolio more than it needs to. Most investors don't recognize this as a mortgage problem. They just think they're being prudent. But take that floor away, and something interesting happens. Suddenly, a 30% drawdown doesn't feel the same. Because even if the worst happens, job loss, market crash, health scare, all of it, your survival number is manageable. You're not staring at a $2,800 monthly obligation with an empty brokerage account. You can ride it out. You can stay invested. You can be patient in a way that was genuinely hard to be before. This is the part that almost nobody talks about when they debate pay off mortgage versus invest. The conversation is always framed around rate of return. 8% market return versus 4% mortgage interest. That's the debate. And fine, it's a real debate. The math is real. But it completely misses that your investing behavior is not rate of return math. It's emotional tolerance math. And your emotional tolerance is directly connected to how exposed you are. A paid-off house lowers your exposure. That changes your behavior. And behavior is what actually determines your long-term returns, not the rate on paper. There's also a patience effect that doesn't get enough credit. When you own your home free and clear, your relationship with time changes. You stop needing money to perform right now. You're not in a race to cover a liability. You can let compounding work on a longer horizon because you're not burning cash on the way there. Compounding is almost entirely about patience. And patience in investing is almost entirely about security. The person with a paid-off house at 50 isn't necessarily smarter than the person who still has a mortgage and a bigger portfolio. But they may be more likely to hold through the next crash, more likely to stay the course when the headlines get scary, more likely to do nothing, which counterintuitively is often the highest returning move. Now here's the blind spot, because there always is one. Some people pay off their mortgage and quietly, gradually start to feel invincible. The house is theirs, they've made it. And that feeling of security, which is real and earned, can start to bleed into overconfidence. They loosen up on their cash reserves. They stop stress testing their finances. They take on riskier, concentrated positions because, what's the worst that could happen? We own our house. They get a little sloppy on diversification because the security of the house makes the rest feel less urgent. This is the trap. A paid-off house is not a hedge against every risk. It doesn't protect you from a bad investment. It doesn't protect you from inflation eating your purchasing power. It doesn't protect you from underinvesting for the first 20 years because you were throwing everything at the mortgage. Financial security isn't one big asset. It's a portfolio of connected decisions. And if a paid-off house makes you emotionally reckless in any other part of that portfolio, you've traded one psychological problem for a different one. So what's actually true here? A paid-off house changes your psychology in mostly good ways if you let it. It lowers your baseline fear. It expands your tolerance for volatility. It gives you patience you didn't have before. It frees up mental bandwidth that was quietly draining you every month. It lets you be a calmer, more disciplined investor, not because you got smarter, but because you're less exposed. That's not nothing. That's actually enormous. But it also requires you to stay honest with yourself about what it does and doesn't protect you from. Own the house. Build the investments. Keep the emergency fund. Don't let a single paid-off asset make you feel like you've solved every problem. The real insight isn't that paying off your mortgage is always the right move. The real insight is that financial freedom isn't just about a number in your account. It's about the decisions you're able to make without fear getting in the way. And a paid-off house for a lot of people is the thing that finally moves fear out of the driver's seat. Not because the math is perfect, but because the psychology finally is.